Thank you, Sarah. That was riveting. I'm going to talk about the verbal and nonverbal communication. The topics to be covered are language, importance of communication, nonverbal and verbal communication, some general observations, and then lastly, written communication. There are some inherent challenges associated with speaking English and Chinese-speaking individuals. Many English teachers in China share the same mother tongue of Chinese. Therefore, the teaching style of Chinese is constructed from a Chinese viewpoint rather than an English viewpoint. The result is a form of English known as Chinglish, which is English that is inappropriate in form and meaning. This is just one of the many factors that can affect communication. There are issues associated with communication, and Chinglish is just one example of the issues that can arise. The importance of communication in Chinese business can be seen by the organization of the company and the investment made by the company. An example of the importance that Chinese companies are assigning to corporate communication is that in most companies, 69.6%, the Chief Executive Officer, or CEO, is the top person responsible for corporate communication functions. Another indicator of the increasing importance of corporate communication among Chinese companies is the promising forecast with regard to resources to be devoted to the function. 73.9% were optimistic about a possible budget increase in a recent study. Also in this study, key functional responsibilities of corporate communication officers, when asked which were included under corporate communication officer responsibilities, more than 90% of the executives surveyed included these areas: media relations, public relations, crisis communication, executive communication, employee relations, communication, policy, and strategy. In most companies, the Chief Executive Officer is the top person responsible for corporate communication functions. This shows the importance Chinese companies put into business. Here is a chart breaking down the percentage of respondents as compared to the US and China on the key metrics we just discussed. When communicating with the Chinese in business, there will certainly be situations where communication takes place in a negotiating setting. Here are some verbal and nonverbal tendencies one can expect. The Chinese negotiating team typically is twice as large as the Western team. 1/3 of the negotiation time was spent talking about technical specifications, while the other third was spent on price. Although both sides tended to use a cooperative strategy, the Chinese team could make sudden demands, apparently to put the Western team in a disadvantageous position. Also, the relationship is extremely important in negotiating in China. Here are some final observations in communication as it relates to the Chinese culture. Context is critical in China. Setting of the communication is also critical. Political and educational implications are a huge factor as it relates to the Chinese. As a result, in the field of technical and business communication, there exists the deep-seated notion on the contradiction between the direct communication style of Western cultures and the indirect style in Eastern cultures, such as China. Finally, we will discuss written communication. Here are a few preferences. Email is not the preferred method of communication. Phone numbers are okay, but more common Chinese methods are IM via QQ, live chat, and more recently WeChat, with companies relying heavily on their corporate WeChat accounts to provide customer service via text messaging. If you are not providing expected contact channels, you won't just lose potential customers and frustrate losers. You'll also lose brand credibility, as everyone wonders what kind of fly-by-the-night operation does not have WeChat. Finally, Laura will finish off this amazing campaign with her own fancy style on China.